Listening to that is Lorrae Yaderberg, former deputy head and founder of JK Educate, an education and tutoring consultancy. Now, I read that home education has increased by 65% between 2009 and 2015, but it doesn't give me the base number, so I don't know whether that's an increase of 5 or 5,000. How popular is it? Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Nick. It is increasingly popular. We come across it a lot, and we're asked by parents to help support their children at home. So we do home education and schooling, and we also work with people who have been home educated and who are actually teaching themselves out there in the community.
In what instances can it work, and what are the extra challenges for the parents and indeed for the child?
Well, I think the parents are very motivated when they want to do this. It, as you said before, it's not something you take on lightly. And the important thing is to make sure that it's done well. And when we're involved with children, we make sure that we've interviewed the parents, that we work with them closely, we understand why they're doing it. It's usually some sort of dissatisfaction with the school system, and they want to control the child's environment more tightly and decide what the children are doing and why. And I think it's a good thing, obviously, that local authorities are involved for protection of the children, because anybody can do this, so obviously there's got to be tight security on this. There are groups around, and children are part of groups. But what we've noticed is that on a socialisation level, there's definitely a challenge here to make sure that a child has the same environment as they would have in school, because school does socialise children and make them resilient. Whether one likes it or not, it does give out a different type of experience for a child. And so when they go to university later on, they do find it a little bit more difficult at times to socialise, because it might be the first time that they've been in that environment. And we know from talking to our teachers who've been in that situation, it was a bit more of a struggle than it might have been for other children. Having said that, it depends on the personality of the children as well.
Do we have any idea of a number of how many children are currently being homeschooled?
I don't have that number, I'm afraid, Nick.
Lastly, what advice...
It is increasing, definitely.
Yeah. Were you to be contacted by the parents involved in this story for your advice as to whether to proceed with a meeting with a home education advisor or not? Because that seems to be the very nub of the problem here. The council wants to meet with her and they say no. How would you advise the parents?
Well, I'd want to know why the parents didn't want to meet with them, and I'd also want to speak to the local authority and find out what they wanted to achieve through that meeting, and then try and mediate between them to see if we could find a solution, because clearly the local authority does need to, tick their boxes and make sure that this is the right environment for the child. So I think finding a middle ground would be the way to go with this, and that's what we would advise the parents.